Watching the BBC News Channel with Joanna Gosling. More on the Queen's funeral. Crown Prince Pavlos is the eldest son of Constantine II, the last king of Greece, who reigned from 1964 to 1973. Queen Elizabeth is his third cousin twice removed. He's travelled to London for Queen Elizabeth's funeral and spoke to me earlier about his memories of the Queen.
The Queen has always been a very kind person to my family, always received us with a smile. My parents were very well taken care of by her when we left Greece, and obviously lived in England for many years thereafter. And my father was always a good confidant for the family and was always by her side. And sadly, he's not so well now, so he's unable to come over. So I'm going with my mother and my wife to stand in for my father. But the Queen was always receiving us with great smiles and family friendship. Always inquiring of how things were going on back home or elsewhere. One of the most wonderful people ever.
One of the most wonderful people ever. So much has been said about her empathy and kindness. That's something you saw up close.
Her empathy, her kindness and her service. And she was a real guiding force for the rest of us young people, not only from her family, from beyond that, and for her husband as well, Duke of Edinburgh. Both of them were dedicated to their service. And that came through in a very natural way to us as well, because they'd ask you questions on what you were doing in life and how you were getting on, and expected to move on in the right way. And those were great guidelines that she kept till the very end.
And you obviously had that link, not just the family link, the personal link, but also through your own service with the military.
Yes, I served in the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards, which is one of the regiments she is Colonel-in-Chief of. And it was, for me, one of the most wonderful experiences to have actually served her directly as such. A wonderful Scottish regiment, and one of, in my mind, the better cavalry regiments. Great service honours, and I was very lucky to have been there when she visited us, when I was in station as a young officer, as well as coming back to visit the regiment a few years ago when she gave us our new standards. And so she's always had great contact with the regiment, and so I feel like not only am I part of her regimental family, but also the real family. So both combined are a wonderful experience for me.
A big loss.
Big loss. She passed away in Scotland. Regiment comes from Scotland. These are things that I also felt close to, having served with the Scots Regiment. And you know, people used to ask me, why am I there? And I said, well, I don't know. I tried to figure a regiment I could fit into, and I fit in very well with the Scots for some reason. Maybe we have blue and white flags is one of the reasons. But she was always well revered, and it's a comic relief. I know my mother would give me a phone call every so often, and I would be told at the officers' mess, you know, the Queen's calling. I said, you better tell me which one.
So, not many people can say that. And then also, I read actually a really nice little moment from your own wedding when the Queen was there and the official photographs were being taken, and she took her place in the front row for the formal photographs, and actually your wife's train was sort of laid out. She helped us
to rearrange
it.
She obviously knew how to maintain, you know, the right decorum, and being a lady herself knew what women liked and have things taken care of in that way. But she's a very human person, and I think anybody who has spoken to her, have met her, have realized that the real human being behind that. I think even in the latter years where we've had social media being more apparent, you can see a lot more of herself and the family. I think the last maybe 5 years, the line between herself as a queen, the then Prince of Wales, now King Charles III, and now William being Prince of Wales, they have had a really good time to join that chain of command, and I think slotting straight through it could not have worked better in my mind. And it's a lot to say to her, opening up her mind to the new ways of communicating.
And when you describe her as a very human person, I mean, she transcended us all, but that humanity is what gave that connection.
Exactly. And you see it by that wonderful video she did with Paddington Bear. I mean, that's such a heartwarming experience that nobody expected. The whole of England, the whole of London went sort of when she came on the screens. And these are very special moments which we'll always remember, of her ability to be such a human touch to the people. And the people turning up to visit her, you know, 12 hours or more hours standing and walking. It's an example of how they really felt of her passion towards her country and her realm. I'm honored to have been part of that for a time of my life. Yeah.
And you were also talking there of the importance, obviously, of the transition now to King Charles III, and how over the recent years in particular there's been that sense of a handover, and I'm sure that you have great empathy for him in his role because of your own role.
I think we'll never see a better prepared person for such a role, obviously having been waiting to get into that role. But he's also had that period of time to get to know his country so well. By having created the charities such as the Prince's Trust. I'm very much part of the Prince's Trust International, which we brought to Greece as well. These are ways of connecting with people that he could not have done if he were the king at the time. So people will know him. People will have felt his empathy towards them before he takes on the role. But from day one, from his speeches and then coming out to see the people outside Buckingham Palace and thereafter on multiples of occasions, you see the immediate connection with the people, how he wants to be there with them and feels they're hurt as much as they feel his. And I think he will be a wonderful king.
And unbelievably moving, actually, to hear those first shouts of "God save the King" from the public as he had that first moment connecting with the people after the passing of his mother when he was outside Buckingham Palace. And that just underscoring that transition that happens from the moment the monarch passes away, the next in line steps right up at the hardest of times when he is grieving the loss of his mother.
It's probably your saddest moment, which then eventually will be a great moment later on, but it is a big challenge. And I think people like to wonder why that you don't see too much crying and weeping and you know, general signs of being very sad. Well, there's so much going on at this point in time in their lives, both for His Majesty and the Prince of Wales and the rest of the family. You know, walking behind their mother, their grandmother, but all the crowds being around you. This gives you a great strength. I'm sure there'll be moments where they will sit back at home and have to weep on their own or as a family. But in the front of the public, it gives you so much energy. So I think that's, you know, do not distinguish between not showing any signs of remorse as more as just pure strength given by the people that are just behind them and you know, of that moment in time, they're also keeping to themselves.
You've spoken of your personal connection, your family links with the Queen and the family. What do you think will be the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II?
Well, undoubtedly, you know, 70 years is beyond anybody's ability. It is something that will very rarely happen in any person's lifetime again. We've just seen basically somebody who has been through the Second World War up until today, the evolution of the world, if not only your own country here, and her steadfastness of just being the same person from day one till the last day, working for her nation, for the bettering of her people, without taking any interest in her own well-being, just maintaining herself for the country. But having also evolved, opened up a little bit over time in different ways that allowed as the world evolved as well. And so I think it's being that same person she was on the day she became queen at 26, and at the same person on the day she passed away, having just received her new prime minister. I think these are things that will always be remembered as just being the same person. A lady, a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, and a queen.
Crown Prince Pavlos, cousin of the Queen and eldest son of the last King of Greece.